Well. We have returned to another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles retrospective. This time we'll be covering Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, or perhaps known to many as Turtles in Time. Written and directed by Stuart Gillard and released on March 13th, 1993. This story would be an entirely different adventure, but not strange, as we've known the four heroes have gone on plenty of adventures. Some involve space travel, some involve traveling through time. This story would settle around the sacred sands of time, a scepter that sends April and the Turtles to feudal Japan. Before we get into the story, we'll discuss a little about the previous movie. Secret of the Ooze met with mildly unfortunate reviews. You see, many parents complained about the violence of the first film, which was very well received. Because of the parental backlash, the studio relented and certain items were removed. One of those being the Turtles' weapons. They couldn't use them in battle. They also added more juvenile themes and sound effects, trying to create more of a brighter film, but it didn't translate well to audiences. The Turtles seemed dumber, the April casting changed, and no Casey Jones, as well as the Shredder being a wasted villain. Principal photography on the film started June to August of 1992. Writer and director Stuart Gillard spoke about the film for the first time in 2024. He said that Golden Harvest approached him to make the third movie from his experience in television. Gillard flew to Massachusetts several times to discuss the script with co-creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who had the film rights to the TMNT property. They went through several revisions until he pitched the idea of time travel, which was immediately greenlit. One of the main things Eastman and Laird said was the Shredder could no longer be used since he died in the previous film. This would lead to a weaker antagonist, which created some of the film's poor reception. The sequel also had to be edgier, which I didn't get entirely from this movie. One interesting topic was that the scepter was based on a character from the Mirage comics, Rennet. Rennet was a teenage apprentice to Lord Simultaneous, a character many may remember from the 2003 cartoon. In the comics, Rennet becomes an ally to the Turtles. She snatched the time scepter and traveled back to Earth in 1986. Now, the film starts in Japan of 1603. A lone horseback rider is being chased by several others from the beach into the woods. I like the subtle transition here. This lone man is known as Prince Kenshin, who is berated and commanded by the samurai warriors to return with him. Kenshin refuses, willing to die, and a fight ensues. Soon, he is beaten as the riders take the reins of his horse and take it. Now, I found this somewhat strange because he'd been so gung-ho about refusing, why not jump off the horse and run? Maybe he wouldn't get far, but it would be more convincing. While he's pulled away, we see a woman waiting in the woods watching this encounter go down. So now the story switches to present day, and once more we meet our heroes. And when it comes to intros we've gotten from all three movies, this one does align. We get a cool training and dancing montage as the boys listen to ZZ Top, Can't Stop Rockin'. This intro makes one thing clear. The Turtles are once more using their weapons. Thank goodness. This was a choice many fans trashed Secret of the Ooze for. Giving the Turtles back their weapons makes sense, considering they would be in feudal Japan against enemies who rely on those same weapons for protection. We'll touch up on the combat later, so once more, we'll catch up on the Turtles. The four brothers need no introduction to the generations of initiated fans. Leonardo, the leader, wielding dual katana, blue bandana. Raphael, the strongest, headstrong, wielding dual sai, red bandana. Donatello, the smartest, wielding a bow staff, purple bandana. And finally, many fan favorite, Michelangelo, the party dude, wielding the nunchaku, orange bandana. Brian Tucci returned once more to voice Leonardo, and Robbie Rist returned as Michelangelo. As a matter of fact, if you follow my recent two retrospectives, you'll see these two voice actors are the only two who return for all three live action movies. We did see some return to form as Corey Feldman would reprise his role as Donatello, having settled his charges, which prevented him from assisting in the second film. Newcomer Tim Keller would take over the role of Raphael. His credits also include the film 13 Days, Inception, and NCIS. Of course, we know the turtles are fictitious. This means the voice actors alone couldn't do the work all by themselves. It's a combined effort of three individuals working three individual uses for the turtles. One handles the voice, the second handles the puppeteering, meaning eye and lip movements, and the last is the in-suit stunt actor who moves around during mobile scenes or action. For Leonardo, Brian Tucci handles the voice acting. Mark Casso handles the puppeteering, Jim Martin handles the facial controls, and Larry Lamb works in for the stunts. For Raphael, Tim Keller handles the voice, Mark Hill handles the puppeteering, Noel McNeil for facial controls, and Housing Pack works in stunts. For Donatello, Corey Feldman voices. Jim Raposo controls the puppeteering, Rick Lyon for facial controls, and Stephen Ho works in stunts. And for Michelangelo, Robbie Rist voices David Fraser, puppeteers, Gordon Robertson for facial controls, and Alan Inokola works the stunts. To quite a many a fan, the suits in this film is what really ruins the momentum of the movie. It's a 90s film, sure. Certain additional uses like CGI or special effects were running on a different form of technology. Honestly, I really enjoy practical suits better because the muscles have more depth, the movements seem more human, but they had what many consider a zombie look. You don't feel a sense of personality when they are speaking. Now, just look at the disappointment on this shot of the first movie.
Splinter.
This film, they just kind of look the same.
Turtles don't migrate, Raph. Birds do.
Hey,
And if they didn't look the same, it just didn't seem convincing. Because of the budget, the famous Jim Henson Company who created the suits for the first two films would not return for the third. Instead, they turned to a company called All Effects. Fans were glad the suits were less restrictive, but felt the studio should have kept the suits from the second film and just touched up on them, because it's such a drastic change in visuals. Costs were attributed to many features of the film, the time-traveling effects and the feudal Japan outfits, which cost most of the film's budget. So if you look at the numbers, you'll see why they chose a cheaper group to create the Turtles. But it's still a questionable call because these are the titular characters. They should get the best treatment. We also get to see Splinter in this film. Once again, we understand a human-sized talking rat is not real, nor is he the focal point of the story. But it's clear he's a lifeless puppet. He appears mostly in windows, or almost you can barely see any bottom half of him. In the first and second film, he has some full body shots and looks more alive. In the third movie, some might say he might as well have a hand stuck up his ass and flapped his lips during scenes. Voice actor James Murray, he still does a good job giving a mentor vibe. But once more, the microtransactions are there for comedy or concern.
Oh, dude. Huh?
Paige Turco has returned once more to assure the part of the April O'Neil, the famous newswoman and best friend to the Turtles. Her origin or average story has changed over the years, but this movie doesn't touch up on any of that. Still, Turco does good for what she's given. She brings the boys some flea market gifts, and I like how excited they are. April is their only connection with the benefits of the outside world. This is where we are introduced to the MacGuffin of the film, the time scepter. Interesting that something like this would be in a flea market, considering what its magical properties are. What if a person just bought it and got transferred to the past, like an old man with zero abilities to protect himself? He just dies somewhere in the past, and that would be the end of his story, and he'd just be declared missing. That's crazy. We do cut to the past, and we're introduced to the film's antagonist, Lord Norinaga, played by Sab Shimono, who's angry at his son Kenshin, played by Henry Hayashi. The mysterious rider from the beginning of the movie, Kenshin had seemingly left the kingdom against his father's wishes. In case any of you is missing the cultural understanding, respect is a huge thing among Japanese culture, especially samurai culture. Disobeying his father disgraces the family and, more importantly, his father. The reaming comes to an end as the film's second antagonist arrives, Walker, played by Stuart Wilson. Walker, an English mercenary, pirate, and arms trader. This makes sense his character would be here, as during the 17th century, the English would begin working and trading with different countries, which is why we hear the English language being spoken by Lord Norinaga. Walker works to gain favor with Norinaga by saving some of his men who have been attacked by a rebel faction that the daimyo has been working to defeat. This is Walker's plan to sell his guns to the samurai. Kenshin, extremely annoyed, began destroying an area and happens upon the time scepter. He reads an inscription and the staff begins to activate and feudal Japan and in the present day. Things start to get crazy in the lair and April is frightened. This scene is kind of weird as she calls to the turtles, but they are completely checked out. I found this so weird that no one notices shadows and unexplained wind blowing. I also couldn't understand why April doesn't just, put the scepter down. Maybe it doesn't let her. I don't know. Kenshin and April switch places in time. April is perceived as a witch by the daimyo, and Kenshin views the turtles as kappa, aka demons. This is where the concept of time travel gets a little strange, and some of my personal bias shines in this film. Every film is different with time travel. Some films, like Back to the Future, prevent certain actions from happening in the past, or it'll affect the present. Movies like Avengers Endgame create branches in time but don't affect the future. Usually the traveling rules aren't so strict. This movie operates on Donnie's understanding of equal mass displacement. Basically, the number of people must equal out and that each traveler matches in weight. Understanding this kind of settled my annoyance of the film. You see, when April and Kenshin switch, their clothes stay, but certain items follow them. So April keeps her Walkman and Kenshin keeps his sword. Perhaps the weight of their specific items makes them equal out in weight? But could a Walkman and a sword really affect their numbers on such a level? The average katana is 2.2 pounds, while a Walkman weighs usually around 5 to 10 ounces. I don't see that changing so much. Of course, the two aren't extremely far apart in body type. It just seemed weird to me. It gets weirder as we get further. Some good and bad news, the Turtles plan to go back and rescue April and enlist some heavy artillery in the form of Casey Jones. Cotillas makes return as the comic hero. Elias Cotillas is welcomed here, although he unfortunately did not appear in the second film, as he was replaced by the character Kino, played by Ernie Reyes Jr. Casey has always been a fan favorite of the franchise. In the comics and in the animated series, he has the skill to go up against several criminals, street thugs, and the Foot themselves. His character in this movie, however, is wasted. He's rendered to plucky comic relief. The Turtles need him to stay with Splinter to keep an eye on Kenshin and the potential threat of the other time travelers who will take their place. The Turtles prepare, and here we touch up on another of the time travel rules. Okay, so Mikey decides to wear shorts during the time travel, believing that because the Turtles are naked, the time travelers will be naked on arrival. But here's where the same weight comes in play. Based off research, I found the Turtles in the comic usually weigh around somewhere of 170 to 173 pounds. Of course, other films have played with height and weight. I'll stick to the Archie comics because they featured the Turtles around 1992. When the Turtles time travel, they switch places with the Daimyo's honor guard. Now, when they switch, the guard arrives with their swords. 3 wear undergarments and the one wears Mikey's shorts. When the Turtles go to the past, they are dressed in the guard's armor, but they still have their weapons. Now, I've read that samurai armor usually weighs around 60 to 80 pounds. That would mean the samurai weigh over 200 pounds? With the armor on as well, minus the undergarments. But wouldn't their weapons offset that? Or wouldn't the turtles in the honor guard maybe switch weapons? If the turtles switch outfits, why don't the turtles leave behind their bandanas? I did do some reading and found out that the initial plan was to have the guard actually be naked on arrival, but they decided against this because this being a kids movie, good call. The turtles are stuck in the middle of a battle, and I can't help but question, why have the time scepter here in the middle of a war? Especially if April was found with it and your son Kenshin was the last to be seen with it. Mikey gets separated from the group due to being backwards on the horse, and somebody's bad script writing shines through here.
I think I swallowed a frog. I hope it wasn't an ancestor.
Turtles and frogs are not the same species. Frogs equal amphibious, turtles equals reptiles. The dialogue between the turtles is also weird. Raph goes through a list of things going wrong so far, and Mikey is included in that. But then Leo asks,
Hey, where's Mikey?
Mikey, by the way, eventually is knocked unconscious by Mitsu, the mysterious woman who also leads a rebellion against Kenshin's father. This is also Kenshin's love interest. And suddenly I think back to the beginning of the movie and realize Mitsu did absolutely nothing to help Kenshin when the soldiers attack him in the woods. I always found that kind of strange. The turtles manage to infiltrate the daimyo's castle and locate April in the dungeon. The turtles confront Walker's men and use some branded 90s humor to deal with Niles.
It's what Willie time, Mo. What 'em?
The castle soldiers come to deal with the turtles, and here we get our first fight scene of the movie. Now, this is a positive of the film. The fights are not goofy. They can have a few goofy sound effects, but they're toned down. The weapons get used and used effectively how anyone would expect. The turtles get overwhelmed, and they, April and Watts, an ancestor of Casey Jones, make a hasty escape in the dungeon's waste chute. I like how the writers tried to include Casey in two separate forms in this movie. We cut back to find Mikey awake in a village. It seems despite his features, he's treated with a good level of humanity. This goes to show the opposite natures of how the rebel faction has been described. They seem to be a peaceful, prosperous community. Soon the village is attacked by several of the daimyo's soldiers and Walker's mercenaries. They come there with the intention of finding the scepter. As this is happening, the turtles and April happen upon a peaceful spring of water. This is the second opportunity for the film to explain the conflicting natures the protagonists struggle with.
I love it. Makes me wanna, I don't know, migrate or something.
Turtles don't migrate, Raph. Birds do.
The rebel faction attacks, and we get our second fight scene of the movie. Once again, I like the fight scenes in this movie. The turtles kick, punch, and use their weapons effectively while using just a little comedy, like when Donnie is making baseball puns, hitting rebels with his staff, or Leo giving a rebel his swords to punch him. I like that the movie gives the fight scenes in two different environments, one in a dark environment and one in a more lit environment. Am I beginning to like this movie? No, absolutely not. That's not happening. Witch shows up to save April, and I appreciate his Casey Jones swag, and you understand why they are related. And I like how the movie gives April some combat as well. It's not uncommon for her character. She's been known to be trained by Splinter. Mitsu calls the fight, and the turtles earn their trust, mostly because Raph looks exactly like the other one. The group returns to the village to find it under attack. Mikey is in the thick of it and comes face to face with Walker, who surprisingly keeps his cool. At least until Mikey hits him with the Clint Eastwood compliment. Niles almost takes a shot on Mikey, but his brothers intervene with another wet willy. The celebrations end early as Yoshi, Mitsu's younger brother, is trapped in their home as it's on fire. Mikey jumps into the action without hesitation and plunges into the house, managing to save the young boy, although he has gone unconscious from smoke inhalation. Leo takes the initiative to perform CPR. Mitsu panics thinking he's causing an evil spill. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation wasn't invented until 1960. It's insane when you consider how many lives may have been spared or were saved had this existed. Another time travel issue is to consider how this may affect the future. The Turtles do gain favor with the people. Walker sees this as an opportunity to exploit Lord Norinaga even further. You see, the Turtles are known as demons to the daimyo based off of a legend and a scroll that shows their exact depiction. Lord Norinaga is afraid that the demons have returned for him. He offers Walker guns for silver and silk, but Walker demands gold instead, which the daimyo denies. April and the Turtles worry about finding the scepter, and Donnie decides the best course of action is to build a new one, or have the village blacksmith build one. Donatello is a bona fide genius. I mean, he does well in terms of modern technology, but building a mythical staff to harness magic time powers in feudal Japan, yeah, I don't see it happening, buddy. Whit takes a chance to convince April to let him return to the present. It's funny how Casey and Whit being related through generations still gives them the same mannerisms. Speaking of Casey, he has his hands full with Kenshin and the Honor Guard. Kenshin fears what may happen to Mitsu, having no faith in the Turtles' success. They demand the scepter, and I like that Casey uses TV to distract them. Despite their hopelessness, Raphael and Michelangelo seem to settle into the community. Raphael forged a tight bond with Yoshi, Mitsu's younger brother. He wants to be a great warrior and has a ton of anger. This is something Raph understands, as we know he's always been the angry, reckless one. He takes on an influential role with Yoshi and encourages him to let go of his anger and be willing to fight and embrace more of being a kid. Yoshi even teaches Raph how to fly a kite. It's always interesting seeing Raph try to give pearls of wisdom to other angry characters. Pot calling the kettle black much. Norinaga chooses to change his mind about Walker's offer, being willing to match the price, guns for gold. Walker did mention that he would push him, but I didn't notice anything to coerce the daimyo outside of just time pass. We do get more comical moments with Casey as he tries to offer a bit of culture to the Honor Guard. I mean, they already are stuffing their faces with Cheetos, but he tries to teach them hockey based on what they saw on television, and of course they only remember the fighting aspect, which is progress in my opinion. Walker and Norinaga complete the paperwork and approve the guns. Norinaga chooses to leave none alive, and Walker completely agrees to annihilate the rebellion. The Turtles create their makeshift scepter. Michelangelo argues that they should consider staying, and this disagreement leads to him and Raph breaking the scepter. I mean, it was a strong chance that scepter wouldn't work anyway. Mitsu brings the warning about the incoming threat, and Raph goes to meet with Yoshi. He makes him a yo-yo and tells his friends just to go play and have fun no matter what. As dark as it is, it's an interesting sight to see how much war can almost numb a child to the truth. He understands Raph and the others might die, but he says it with such numbness, but granted that might just be child act. In order to save Raph, he brings him a gift. The damn scepter. I get that they are excited, but passing it around so recklessly is how they broke the previous one. Raph calls out Mitsu for keeping the scepter a secret. However, it was the grandfather who instructed Yoshi to hide the scepters so the Turtles would fight instead. Whit takes Mitsu hostage, threatening to keep her alive in favor of the scepter and returning Kenshin. Obviously, that cannot happen without the scepter. Mitsu tries to warn Norinaga that Walker is crossing him, but her attempting to kill him doesn't help her case. Whit gives Walker the scepter, and this is supposed to absolve him of their deal. April creates a distraction by asking for the daimyo, giving the Turtles the opportunity to infiltrate the castle.
Meow, dude! Ow! His chin's landed on my foot! Sayonara, blubberbutt!
They save Mitsu and free several of the prisoners. The Turtles learn about the legend of the Kappa. Even seeing the daimyo scroll, according to Mitsu and the daimyo, the Kappa defeated the daimyo's ancestors and his army. I actually wonder if at some point in an unscripted adventure, the Turtles went back further in time to fighting the previous daimyo. Norinaga finds the Turtles. There's an Addams Family joke that was supposed to be funny, but it's the puppets moving that makes it look so awkward.
Hey, you were expecting maybe the Addams Family?
Good one.
Are we out of the loop?
We get an honorable face-off between him and Mitsu that Mikey brings to an end. We get another fight scene, and once again, it's not bad to see. It does have some goofy sound effects, but the hits connect. They can be brutal at times. And to add a little more love, the turtles fully use their weapons, and the lighting makes the fight more noticeable in terms of detail. I also love the little high foot scene here.
Leo, high foot! Hey!
The team frees the prisoners and opens the main gate to allow the resistance in, and we get a full-on war scene. Leo gets a one-on-one with Norinaga. The daimyo gets the upper hand until he royally pisses off Leo. I like that even though he's pissed, Leo remains in control. Leo defeats him, and instead of killing him, Leo merely gives him a haircut, then traps him in a ceremonial bell.
Who's trapped inside?
It's funny how all of a sudden the whole battle just stops. I mean, it's an eventful end, but come on, in the middle of a fight, who caught on to that? Walker makes his play against the turtles with April as a hostage, and his men bring in the guns. He commands his people to shoot them, but Wit declines, only to be staring down the barrel himself. Once again, we see that some of his actions aren't horrible, more aligned with self-preservation. This may align with how Casey Jones is raised on something greater than his present choices. Donnie makes a complaint that if they die in the past, they won't be born in the future, which is wild to be worried about that now because every event they taken part in, from saving Yoshi to replacing the honor guard, could have dangerous ramifications. Now he's worried about them dying and the future changing? Leo challenges Walker, but using their identity as demons to say their weapons will be useless. Based on the timeline, I could see the men believing and hesitating. Walker instead calls that bluff with the cannon.
Boy, do I love being a turtle.
Oh, yes, that's very clever. Oh, yes, very clever.
You missed me.
In true turtle fashion, Leo ducks down into his shell. The turtles in the rebellion continue on the fight, and we get another 90s joke. The turtles split up and trap Walker, who still has the scepter. He uses it as a last-ditch effort to escape, and Walker, of all the things, goes back for his pet birds. I mean, I understand having pets, but come on, man, isn't survival key here?
What kind of demons?
The turtles work together to save the scepter, and Wit helps one final time, knocking Walker down into the water. The team sets up to return to the present, all except Mikey, who claims that he's staying. Raph actually supports this choice. Honestly, I understand why they feel this way. The boys are not known by the rest of the world, and with how human beings think, there's no belief that will ever change. It gets hard living like that, not being able to experience anything except living below ground, wishing for something different. At least in the past, they would be appreciated, respected, and that's not something easily dismissed. Donatello immediately decides against it, mostly because he can't live in an age without technology. I was surprised, however, how Leonardo doesn't say much. As a matter of fact, he's in the middle. I didn't expect that at first. As the leader, I would assume he'd be the first to urge them to return. Perhaps he may see and understand how Mikey feels. Kenshin, however, activates the scepter. Splinter appeals to Kenshin's honor, and he decides to wait for the honor guard. The honor guard, however, are too busy having fun, even give a little 90s humor to Casey.
Lucky, we're going back.
Mitsu brings Yoshi to say goodbye, and though Mikey wants to stay, Mitsu can't accept it or the family wars will begin again. I like how this stops Mikey because he had promised Kenshin would return back. Leo finally comes to his senses and urges the others to return with New York as it is their destiny. Yoshi and Raph get to have their goodbye. The team goes back, but Mikey misses the chance. Luckily, one of the guard used the staff to transport himself back and bring Mikey to the present. Kenshin and Mitsu are reunited. Splinter notices Mikey down and uses the Elvis impression to brighten his spirits, and they also have a closeout dance number. And that completes the film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 debuted at number 1 at the US box office with a gross of $12.4 million. The film grossed $42.2 million in the US and in Canada, and at $12.2 million internationally, giving a worldwide gross of $54.4 million. The film has a 19% approval rating and has an average rating of 4 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes based on 32 reviews with the consensus. It's a case of one sequel too many for the heroes in a half shell, with a tired time travel gimmick failing to save the franchise from rapidly diminishing returns. Basically, of the three, it's the worst movie. Some people have had mixed feelings. Some people love it, some love to hate it. Honestly, I think the film could have done better with more interaction between the turtles. What I mean by that is some harsh arguments or difficulty working together. I mean, the turtles usually stick together, but their greatest moments are after problems occur and they have to work through them together. I don't think I necessarily love the movie. Best I can say is I accept it for what it is. It seemed like the creative energy was kind of uneven. It seems that it tries to be too many things to too many people. It tries to appear goofy enough for kids, but mature enough for adults. If there was something else I would complain about is that I didn't really feel like the Turtles had a strong amount of motivation to get involved with events outside of April or the Scepter, knowing their involvement may already change or damage the future. I also felt like the Shredder or the Foot Clan could have been mentioned here. They didn't have to be involved or maybe just spoken of or introduced in some form or fashion, like a mysterious shinobi or an assassin clan. Maybe they would help Walker to push the events further. When Walker mentions that he will have to find a way to force the Daimyo's hand, it would have been a great opportunity to put the foot in this moment and prove them as a shinobi clan that helps Walker attain his goals. There was actually a canceled sequel, TMNT 4, The Foot Walks Again. Peter Laird had released some concept designs from writers Craig Shapiro and John Travis. However, plans were scrapped, which is how we eventually got The Next Mutation from 1997 to 1998. All right, guys, so that concludes my retrospective of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. I've had fun talking about all these turtle movies. I'm not exactly sure when I'll be getting into the following films. I might do a small retrospective on Mutation or The Next Mutation. I'm not exactly sure, but if I get around to that, I'll let you guys know. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.